Hello, ladies and gentlemen, MarauderEX here with my post-Sony E3 event. I don't even know where to begin with this one, I really don't. Okay, so Sony looked like they went for quality over quantity. They didn't have nearly as many games as the Microsoft event did. They didn't showcase a ton of stuff, but what they did show, they went more in depth for. So I made notes about the thing. I watched it. I was watching it with a friend, and we were just kind of flabbergasted. It was the beginning was very painful to watch. They started off. There was a guy playing a banjo-like instrument. It wasn't a banjo. It's something more fancy. I forget the title of it, the name of it, but it in a revival-esque church. And the only thing I could think of is Anyway, Here's Wonderwall. And then it went into The Last of Us 2, and that was a jarring experience because it starts off at a dance, people dancing, and then women dancing, and then women kissing, and then straight slitting someone's throat. Like, what? What is going on? And then the gameplay looks awesome. It looks very much, you know, Uncharted meets survival horror. It's Last of Us. It's still very much Last of Us. It seems like it was more combat oriented than the last of Us. I mean, there was combat in Last of Us, but like this one seems far more, just far more everything. So it looked good, and then it went back to them dancing, and it was a little jarring. It looks great. But I mean, were you expecting anything less from Last of Us? Then there was Call of Duty maps, just randomly Call of Duty maps. And then as that was happening, there was a scene transition. So they wanted to move everyone who was in the revival church into the actual auditorium. They had to have people giving commentary, like a halftime show that no one wanted to watch. It was painful. That was a very bad design choice for them, because it's like you're taking people away from what they actually want to know about it, which is the games. They should have had a better plan for the transition there. It was just bad. Then they were talking about previously announced games that they had talked about earlier in the week, things like Beat Saber, things that aren't really that new and not really needing time to discuss on the floor, basically. Then we saw some Destiny. There was no gameplay. It was just a story scene. It's like, I mean, I guess that we're expecting it to play exactly like Destiny has been playing before, so not really a surprise, but like, it seemed kind of to me. Then there was a guy playing a Japanese wind instrument. Again, here's Wonderwall. And that segued into Ghost of Tsushima, which looks gorgeous. That game looks amazing. I have no idea, like, as we were providing commentary watching it, we were wondering if maybe it's not real, maybe it's a dream, maybe it's like the last thing the samurai sees before death. It was the color palette and the lighting and the weather just give off an unearthly feel. It looks different, but it looks gorgeous. It really does. And that game looks like it could be a lot of fun, and they showed off a ton of gameplay for it. Very Assassin's Creed-esque. And then we got Control, which is, I dubbed it Jean Grey with a gun, because you are a woman with some sort of telekinetic powers and a gun just everywhere. It looked good. I liked it. Excited about it. And then we saw Resident Evil 2, which was one of the heavy hitters. And when I've just talked about how Last of Us 2 looks great, and Ghost of Tsushima looks great, when the Resident Evil 2 is a heavy hitter. It doesn't look as polished as the other two, but I don't think it quite needs to be. It looks good, but it wasn't like super realistic, but they kept a lot of the Resident Evil 2 feel to it. So I was excited about that. Kind of figured it was coming. There's been a lot of talk here and there about it, but glad to see it. Glad to see it. Then there was a Rick and Morty based game called Trover Saves the Universe, and I like Rick and Morty. I really do. I don't feel that this is necessary. I really don't. I mean, yay that they're able to make money in different revenue streams for this, but I didn't feel it was necessary. Then they showed off a bunch more of Kingdom Hearts 3, and everything at E3 that has shown Kingdom Hearts 3 has shown different parts of Kingdom Hearts 3. At this point, they could show us a fair bit of the game if they just put all three of those trailers together. This one was going back to Pirates of the Caribbean was the big thing, and it looked gorgeous. It looked like Pirates of the Caribbean. They have certainly updated the models. Jack Sparrow looks like Jack Sparrow. It looked good. So I was really, really excited to see that. Then we had the confusion that is Death Stranding. Stranding, I think it's Strand. I don't remember. It's confusing, and it's just going to keep confusing everyone because, oh my god, what is going on? Another friend of mine messaged me during the middle of this, and he's like, what is this? What is this game? It's like, it's Norman Reedus and a baby, and you have to... Are you using a baby to protect you from the ghost of abortions past? And I'm like, that's a dark joke. That's a dark joke. But I made the joke that you're a post-apocalyptic postman, because that's what they showed. It was someone walking with stuff on their back. That was it. That was so much of what they showed off, and I'm pretty sure they did that on purpose because I really think Kojima just wants you to have more questions than answers about this game until you play it. Like, nothing about it's going to make sense until you play it. And then you're like, oh, it all snaps together. Or your brain is going to snap as if you looked into the eyes of Cthulhu or some other eldritch horror, and your sanity just crumbles away. 50-50 shot of either of those happening. So, I made a joke about baby radar because that was the baby radar, and then suddenly you see ghosts. I don't know. Then they showed off a little bit of Neo 2. Neo. Looked good from what little bit they showed of it, so mazel tov to that. And then they showed off a ton of Spider-Man. And it looks like they were just gearing up for the Sinister Six, the Insidious Six, the six bad guys of Spider-Man. You've got the Vulture, you've got Electro, you've got Scorpion. It looked... I described it as the best parts of Spider-Man on the PS1 with the Batman Arkham games. And the best parts of those two games pieced together, and it made a really good patchwork game. The combat looked free-flowing, much like the Arkham games, but even more so because it seems to allow for all of the fun that is Spider-Man and his very acrobatic style of combat, as well as the webs and the different types of web attacks that seem to be capable. And then the web slinging, chasing Electro looked awesome. It was a good showing for the games. With that said, I don't think it was a good showing for Sony. I really think that this was kind of a subpar E3 experience for them. It seems like they went in knowing that they didn't have a ton to show off, so they wanted to show off as much of what they could. So, the first 20 minutes was literally the opening, Last of Us, and then you hit the transition. Like, that was the first 20 minutes of the entire presentation. So, I'm glad they showed off a ton of Last of Us, but for what they showed, it didn't resonate as well. Like, Microsoft had a little bit for everyone. Sony went in and was like, these are the games, these are our franchises that we're showing off. We're going to show them off in depth. And if there's nothing here for you, sorry, we got nothing else. And so far, the people I've talked to about it, it's not what you've come to expect from Sony. And Sony tends to have a problem with the theatrics of their press conference. Like, this was not the first time like they decided to do a weird design choice with the church at the beginning and then shuffle everyone else back into another hall. Like, that seemed weird. Not their worst choice, but by far not a good design choice, because it left everyone watching and then everyone else just kind of going, this is boring. This is boring, and no one really wants to see this. And then the games that they showed didn't really cover a ton of genres. There was zero, aside from Kingdom Hearts 3, and there's going to be people that talk about Kingdom Hearts 3 not being a JRPG, there was no role-playing presence. There were no other RPGs, and, like, that's unique for them. Like, Sony has a very hardcore JRPG following. Like, I'm just kind of surprised there wasn't really much else. I'm glad the things that they showed off, you got to actually see gameplay rather than, like, about a half a dozen things at the Microsoft event that it was a trailer. Like, some had gameplay, some didn't, but, like, this was a lot of in-depth gameplay. So it was very quality over quantity, but I don't know if that was the best design decision for Sony this time, because going against what Microsoft had 50 some odd games, when you come in to this one with like 8, it looks really rough. It looks like Sony got complacent and just kind of took a step back, and then Microsoft kind of snuck in and was like, hey, we actually have something this time. So, not the best E3 performance I've ever seen. Not the best E3 performance from Sony that I've ever seen. Not necessarily bad, but I didn't feel that it was all that great. I'm very surprised. Like I said, I like what I saw of what they showed, but I just wish there was a little bit more. Like, I wish we didn't have to spend so much time. I wish we didn't have to spend so much time in between the set transitions, for one, because that was a good 10 minutes of just completely taking me out of the experience. But I don't know. I know there are going to be a bunch of people like, Sony had a great conference. I mean, for the people who like the action style games, the more open world style things, because Ghost of Tsushima, Spider-Man, and Last of Us all have that same style of gameplay. So like if that's a genre you were into, they nailed it for you. They knocked it out of the park, but like there was nothing else. It's all very much the same style of gameplay. So like, for me, who likes RPGs of various types, I was a little let down. But I don't know. It was definitely a different experience for Sony. And I really hope next year they stop with the theatrics of trying to do something weird and just say, hey, we got games. Let's talk about the games. Let's not have to spend a few minutes letting you listen to a guy play an instrument to set the tone for the game that we're getting ready to spend another 10 minutes talking about. That's a strange design choice in my opinion. So, not really my favorite E3 performance so far. I was a little underwhelmed. So last up, we've got Nintendo tomorrow. and I'm looking forward to that and seeing. Hopefully, you know, the last few E3s, Nintendo has been the ones like I went into it with kind of low expectations, and then they just kind of pleasantly surprised me. There's a lot more here than I was expecting. I'm hoping for that again, but we'll see. Because this has been a very surprising E3 for me. Like, I did not expect to be blown away by Microsoft's performance. I was expecting more from Sony's and didn't get it. So my expectations are just now completely shattered. I have no idea what's going to happen. I feel like a meteorologist. I'm just going to throw a dart at the dartboard, and that's my best guess as to what's going to happen. So I will catch you all tomorrow for the Nintendo event. So till then, later everyone.